Which actor portrayed a character so well that no other actor could ever replace them? Andre the Giant, Rasimov as Fezzik. Anybody want a peanut? He was the Brute Squad. Sleep well and dream of large women, Andre. He was also unemployed in Greenland. He is the Brute Squad. From what I've seen in the behind the scenes features of that film, he was nothing but pleasant to everyone he worked with. He truly was beloved by all for his incredible kindness, a real life hero. My favorite Andre story involves a bully on a flight. Apparently the guy couldn't find space for his hand luggage. While glaring at the lady he was seated beside, he removed her luggage from the overhead storage, dumped it on the floor and put his own in its place. Andre promptly offered to swap seats with the lady, exchanging first class for her seat in the cabin. He lifted her luggage into the spaces previously occupied, and proceeded to replace this guy's with his own. The guy then had the luxury of sitting in airline seats beside Andre, holding his luggage on his lap. Of course, Andre is also infamous for his drinking capacity, famously downing several crates of beer in the back of a car en route to a party. I like the story where he drank so much he passed out in the hotel lobby. He was so big they couldn't move him, so they had to drape a piano cover over him until he woke up. When they were in Japan and Hogan was starting out, Andre would drink a beer and throw the empty at Hogan. Hogan had to count to the number in the crate and get the bus to stop so Hogan could go and get Andre more beer. He used to hold Robin Wright in his huge hands to warm her up on cold sets. I think they said he'd put his hand on the top of her head to warm her up. It did the trick. Yes, that's it. She was apparently scared of him at first and then he just treated her like he would a little sweet baby. How can you not fall in love with that guy? If you listen to any stories from his WWF, WWE whatever co-workers, they all have nothing but good memories and stories about him. Jake the Snake has some really funny stories about him and gets a little quiver in his voice when he really starts thinking about him. And he was so proud of the movie. Literally everyone in that movie was perfect and irreplaceable in their respective roles. The fact that I've heard talk about a remake is hilarious. It will be absolute trash if it ever gets the green light. There's no way they can ever live up to the original, not even close. Anyone talking of a remake should be banned from making movies for life. Do not mess with perfection. That role was literally written for him. When William Goldman wrote the character of Fezzik, it was Andre he had in mind. My way is not very sportsmanlike. Arnold Schwarzenegger as the Terminator. Dude was super into the role and played a machine so incredibly well. They have to make a CGI version of him in a lot of the newer films because no one can pull it off like he did. I'd also add Robert Patrick as the T-1000. None of the other Terminator versions have come close to him. Arnie is still the best but Robert Patrick is on that tier to me. Robert Patrick didn't even blink when firing a gun in T2. That's something barely any other actor not named Clint Eastwood could do. Robert Patrick also trained running while extensively breathing only through his nose so he could sprint long distances with his mouth closed. This is such a little detail but so important to the overall appearance of the T-1000. He was also able to catch up to Edward Furlong on his bike, so they had him slow down lower than the safe speed Furlong was riding at for filming. Christ, that's scary. Well, keep in mind Edward Furlong was not going full tilt on the bike. He would likely have been driving a manageable speed for the crew and cameras. So, not as scary, but definitely awesome. Oh man, I think I didn't realize that consciously but that's a great observation. Definitely agree with Robert Patrick as the T-1000. In one of the DVD special features, he explained that he did a bunch of research prep for his role by watching documentaries about different predators in the wild. He noticed that many used very efficient, smooth movements when hunting to conserve their energy. He made it a point to mimic them when acting as the T-1000. Again, A small detail, but it makes him seem so much more inhuman in the film. Other little details are the way he scans his environment when walking, like a security camera, panning back and forth. https://www.youtube.com/watch?vec_jbfreqf9q did a similar thing, except where Patrick's eyes stay fixed in his skull. Pretty difficult to do. Arnie's eyes move to their target and are followed by his skull. https://www.youtube.com/watch?vec=ftzvwtj, and then there's his walk. Like a cat, if I recall correctly. Part of the reason he was chosen was because of that walk, which he was spotted doing in Die Hard 2. https://youtube/w0hjtroct8m?tech=61. He fired and increased the sales of the 6.5-inch .44 Magnum S&W Model 29 single-handedly, the most powerful handgun in the world, at the time. Does Eastwood even need to blink? His eyes are practically closed already. I like to think of the T1000 as the new, slick and upgraded iPhone, while the T800 is a Nokia brick. They both played it perfectly. Anyone else was meh. Cam wits me if YUO1TUO live. Seriously though, he is perfect. Also in the Conan movies, the director said, he fit perfectly. If Arnold didn't exist, we would have had to build one. Every time I watch Conan the Barbarian, I find myself wishing the director had made everyone in Conan's home village do an impression of Arnold. Cam he Conan, I teach you a Bart Kurum and a riddle a steal. J.K. Simmons as JJJ. He's so good in that role, he transcends dimensional barriers. And Cave Johnson. Simply can't picture any other voice now. Now, if you're part of Control Group Kepler 7, we implanted a tiny microchip about the size of a postcard into your skull. If it starts beeping during this next test, let us know, because it's about to hit 500 degrees, so we're gonna have to get that out of you pretty fast. I still laugh most at this Cave Johnson moment because the people with the 500-degree postcard implanted in their brains are in the control group. What the hell did they do to the actual experiment group? To be honest, we're just throwing science at the wall here to see what sticks. No idea what it'll do. Probably nothing. Best case scenario, you'll get some superpowers. And Fletcher in Whiplash. The guy's a good actor. With the lemons. Not quite my tempo. Stresses me just reading this. Are you rushing, or are you dragging? I was so stoked to hear that he's going to reprise the role. He's what? He had a cameo in the last Spidey film and he'll have a bigger role in the next one. This version of JJJ is an Alex Jones type, an online news host from the Daily.net, which actually exists and has some really fun content like this JJJ video, https://youtube/ivr-j1zpou. If I remember correctly, it's how he was portrayed in the video game. He goes on crazy anti-Spider-Man rants on his podcast. He's been portrayed as an on-screen personality in various media in recent years, starting with the Ultimate Comics. It's a natural fit for the character given that most people get their news online now rather than newspapers. Not to mention he has such a great energy for that kind of thing, too. It's a great fit emo. Like it was made for him. You know what you should make for him? Pictures of Spider-Man. He's so good that he survived a reboot. Has anyone else ever done that? Ryan Reynolds as Deadpool? Is Origins Wolverine still canon? What even is canon in the X-Men cinematic universe anymore? Danny DeVito as Frank Reynolds. I feel like the whole gang can't be replaced, especially Charlie, except for maybe Mac. He almost got replaced. R.I.P. Country Mac. He really was way too drunk all the time to be riding a motorcycle with no helmet. You know what's badass? Being alive. A sweet D could easily be replaced by an ostrich. Gets out of the lake drinking his beer still. Suicide is badass. I'm so glad he joined the cast. Rowan Atkinson as Mr. Bean. Rowan Atkinson as the Blackadder. Rowan Atkinson as the Doctor. Stop. Rick Mayall as Flash Hit. The last scene in the episode Bells from Blackadder 2 might be the finest 5 minutes of hamming up ever shown on TV. Woof. Harrison Ford, Indiana Jones. Johnny Depp, Captain Jack Sparrow. I was kinda disappointed by how Jack is portrayed in the last movie. In the first one he was witty and weird, but still a remarkable swordsman, skilled tactician and in general a very smart man with a little bit of luck. Now, the last few movies, and especially in the last one, he's just some dumb, cartoonish loser who gets out of troubles purely by luck and coincidence. He got hit with the flanderization ray super hard, honestly. Though I love Pirates 1 so much I thought they completely missed the mark in the sequels with what I actually liked in the first movie. I like the second one up till they get off Cannibal Island and that's about it. I suffer through the rest of them. I always liked Jeffrey Rush as Barbossa more than Depp as Sparrow. Jeffrey Rush is amazing in these movies. Nobody else could do Captain Barbossa so definitively. He's always a bright spot compared to his ever more drunken counterpart. Yeah, they definitely leaned hard into making him buffoonish in the last 3 movies. Last 3, he knew exactly what he was doing in At World's End. I really like At World's End. I don't understand all the hate it gets. In my opinion the first 3 are a really solid trilogy. Exactly, the original trilogy was great. Curse of the Black Pearl sets the atmosphere, the characters and just brings you a very good standalone film. I absolutely enjoy Dead Man's Chest and At World's End as a 2-piece story. I agree 10,000% with what's been said about Dead Men Tell No Tales though. Absolutely hate what they've done to Jack. He's always lucky. Fuck number he used to be cool, witty and fool you right before your eyes. None of that was present in part 5. I think Pirates of the Caribbean is one of the greatest movies ever. Jack Sparrow works as a character because he's not the main character, but he swerves around them while the love story is unfolding. As with a lot of great sidekicks, the sidekick is not as funny when he gets his own movie. I just want to tell the people that made the movie that this was the movie where you almost caught Captain Jack SP. In the first one he was witty and weird, but still a remarkable swordsman, skilled tactician and in general a very smart man. They completely changed his character tbh after the first one. He was written as eccentric but still the best pirate I have ever seen. Many of his quirks were actually part of a bigger plan. The compass doesn't show north, because I do not intend to go north. Johnny Depp added to this with his acclaimed rock star performance. Disney's executives seem to have thought that people really liked the goofy bits and therefore proceed to more and more write him as an one-dimensional, goofy, drunk and clueless moron. Johnny Depp can barely play Jack Sparrow anymore. Correction, he can barely play anything but Jack Sparrow anymore. Because he is a drunk, or just old, or both. Actually I don't know the exact reason. I think his latest parts have all just been versions of Jack Sparrow. Or maybe he's accurately portraying the evolution of Jack Sparrow into depression and apathy brought on by the events of his life. Who knows what effects dying and being brought back to life would have someone. I can see Russell Brand playing Jack Sparrow. Sir Patrick Stewart, Captain Jean-Luc Picard. Also Professor Xavier. Yeah, as much as I generally like James McAvoy, I just can't see him turning into Patrick Stewart in any way. He's just weaker on the part than Patrick Stewart. I could absolutely see Michael Fassbender turn into Ian McKellen. Charles Dance as Tywin Lannister. Physically, he doesn't look much like how Tywin is described. Bald, with giant sideburns. but it didn't matter one bit. From his first scene, he had Tywin's gravitas and presence nailed perfectly. Game of Thrones is full of perfectly cast actors: Jack Gleeson, Pedro Pascal, Lena Headey, Nikolai Coster-Waldau, Peter Dinklage, Conleth Hill, Gwendolyn Christie, but Charles Dance as Tywin is head and shoulders above them all. Always thought Mark Addy and Sean Bean as Robert and Ned were perfect too. Without great casting for those two roles, season 1 wouldn't have been nearly as good as it was. That's a really good point. They did a great job not only selling their individual characters but also making sure that you could totally buy that these two diametrically opposite personalities could be best friends. The scene they share in season 1 episode 2 on the road where they're reminiscing about when they were young was pitch perfect, and I wish we could have gotten to see a bit more of them being brothers. God's eye was strong then. Put some respect on Alfie Allen as Theon Reek. I can't believe I left him off. Absolutely, he was fantastic. Regardless of how you feel about how it ended, I'm in the Ed was okay camp. Pretty much the entire cast was aces from top to bottom. Alfie Allen is fantastic, and I honestly think he needs to be cast in a movie about meth addiction. He has a quality in his appearance that fits, and we've already seen him absolutely kill a character who has hit rock bottom. Yeah, guy could be sober all his life and still have that drug addict look. Best in the show for me was Rory McCann as the Hound. One of my favorite stories was about them trying to cast Jon Snow but they couldn't find a good fit. Then they saw Kit Harington and said, yup, this guy looks sad enough. It was between him and Ewan Ryan to play Jon Snow. Imagine Ramsay as a Stark. I'd believe it. Ewan Ryan has a lot of range. Rory McCann Clegane, think I'll take 2 chickens. Poliver, you don't seem to understand the situation. Clegane, I understand that if any more words come pouring out your CT mouth, I'm gonna have to eat every f-king chicken in this room. Tom Hanks, Forrest Gump. SSSHHHHH. Don't remind them this movie exists. They will try to remake it. Don't think the author, Winston Groom, is gonna let anyone have at it again. If he gets a say in a remake, supposedly, they screwed him over royally when it came to getting paid. See the follow-up book he wrote called Gump and Company for more on this. He literally starts the book with Forrest saying don't ever let anyone make a movie about your life, and then it goes ducking batch T crazy from there. Could you provide us with an example of batch T crazy? He is hired by Coke to make new Coke taste closer to the old formula, and the ghost of Jenny appears to him to tell him he's being used by the company. He fakes out the Coke executives and they release new Cokers and it starts a riot. Later he kicks a football over the Berlin Wall during a game and it results in the wall being torn down. Also he captures Saddam Hussein while in the army, but is ordered to bring him back. Lieutenant Dan is killed during this mission. It ends with Forrest Jr. being an asshole teen and Forrest getting remarried and selling his life story to a movie company. Also at some point in the book they meet a young Tom Hanks. I left the one comment before I read this one, and I still have questions. LOL somehow. How does a man in a wheelchair get sent on another mission as the least of them? New legs. He got those bionic legs, G. This mother ducker acting like Lieutenant Dan didn't get new legs. Like, duck you. I'm pretty sure he goes to space with a monkey. Ian McKellen as Gandalf. I don't know. While McKellen was great, Christopher Lee, who ended up playing Saruman, desperately wanted to play that role and is a huge Tolkien fan, to put it mildly, so I think he could have done an amazing job with it. I know Christopher Lee wanted to play Gandalf, but I think he was cast more appropriately as Saruman. He played that role perfectly. Nobody could have done his voice on The Wind. Meanwhile Ian McKellen has much softer features and a perfect smile for his role. Fun fact. Christopher Lee is the only one in the movies to have actually met Tolkien. Christopher Lee also corrected Peter Jackson on the sound a man makes when he's stabbed in the back. I have many questions. So during the war Christopher Lee was apparently part of the special squad of Nazi hunters. His life was hella wild. I really recommend reading his Wikipedia page. In the books, Gandalf was portrayed to be sharper and less compassionate than he is in the movies. In the movies, he's the protective grandpa of the Fellowship. In the books, he is a little more like the disgruntled boss that has been at it too long and just wants to get shit done. At least that's how I interpreted him. Which honestly seems pretty normal to be after a couple of thousand years of being a half-god, babysitting humans, elves, dwarfs and whatnot. He kinda varies. He's more friendly grandpa-ish in The Hobbit and Fellowship prior to being imprisoned by Saruman, but kinda becomes more of an exasperated Hardus. And then after the Balrog in the books there's more implication that he was kinda reborn as a totally different person. If I recall correctly, he meets Merry and Pippin and doesn't remember them. Same with Viggo Mortensen as Aragorn. He portrays a character with a masculine grace, and you feel protected and comforted at the same time. Perfectly encompasses the character. Christoph Waltz as Hans Lander. The first few minutes of that movie, flawless. Perfect. Golden minutes. Fun fact, Tarantino almost cancelled the movie because he didn't want to shoot unless he found the perfect actor to portray Lander's character. Luckily he found Waltz at the very last moment. Why is the remote or your phone the last place you look? Because you quit looking after you find it. Sounds like the same scenario to me. Phew. I was afraid the clock wouldn't turn to the next hour, but it did at the very last minute. Same for his character. Forgot the name. In Django Unchained. He's a treasure. I think it was Dr. King Schultz. That's a bingo. You just say bingo. Oh. How fun. I loved his Schultz. If only because it let him be truly charming. Hans Lander could be charming, but you had to have that undercurrent of creepiness to remind people he was a Nazi. Schultz let him really turn it on. It was a pretty good balance in both, I think. Schultz was outstanding. Lander was outstanding as well, and he was oddly charming despite being a Nazi. I remember at the end of that movie thinking, what a perfect end. I'm kind of glad that the charming Lander got his, presumably, Medal of Honor, commission and pension as a US Army colonel and scenic house in which he could spend his retirement. But I also felt like he kind of deserved to get a swastika etched into his head. Remember the first scene of the movie? He legitimately believed that the Jews were rodents that should be exterminated. He was just savvy enough to realize that the Nazis were losing and he should find his way over to the winning side before the war ended. He is fully evil, and completely deserved to have the swastika carved into his head. My read on it was that he was just an opportunist. He's a rabid antisemite because he lives in a world where that is necessary to thrive. He'll move to the US, probably get that swastika fixed by a plastic surgeon, and become a pillar of his community as he finds ways to gain influence and privilege. If you took him from there and dropped him into Israel, he would probably embrace a role as a guy who worked to bring down the Nazis from within. I don't think he has an ideology beyond his own self-interest. This scene was literally the first time I ever witnessed good acting. This guy played that character so well that it made me love him at the same time hate him. My first thought after reading the question, that scene is so heavy you can feel the pressure. Bryan Cranston, Walter White. Aaron Paul, Jesse. Bob Odenkirk, James McGill, Saul Goodman. Jonathan Banks, Mike Ehrmantraut. Dean Norris, Hank Schrader. Lavelle Morris Crawford, Huel Babineau. Anna Gunn, Skylar White, Betsy Brandt, Mary Schrader, R.J. Mitt, Walt White Jr. The whole damn cast was phenomenal. Giancarlo Esposito, Gustavo Fring. Bill Burr, that one guy. Bill Burr, Fake environmental auditor edit. Would hate to upset anyone with not being utterly duck imprecise with this glib joke. The acting in general in Breaking Bad is so good that I had to constantly remind myself that they were actors, like Pinkman's friends for example. At the end of every episode I'd be like, wait, these aren't actually meth heads, these are young actors doing their best to make it in their careers. Well, to be fair, the actor for Skinny Pete is like 40. So is Aaron Paul. Actor that played Skinny Pete is a concert pianist. How's that for a mind trip? It was such a minduck when he's in El Camino and takes off his hat for the first time ever. Skinny Pete is literally the character who I had the most difficult time believing wasn't a junkie. He's just so convincing. I only realized that they are normal people after I started watching extras. Right, the casting was really great too. They found the perfect people. Alan Rickman, Snape. It's especially impressive that he pulls off evil and sinister so well when in real life he's a genuinely nice and kinda goofy guy. Damn fine actor. R.I.P. Alan. UHH, is anyone going to tell him? Not me, I'm still in denial. What's wrong with Alan Rickman IRL? The L. You see that with quite a few actors known for playing evil characters. Peter Cushing, Christopher Lee, Margaret Hamilton, and Robert Englund, just to name a few. Piggybacking off your comment, but Imelda Stanton, Dolores Umbridge, she fit the character to a T. I'll also piggyback to say that I feel like McGonagall was another one portrayed amazingly. I feel like Maggie Smith captured her essence perfectly and somehow even improved upon the character. I'm rereading the books now, and while I can imagine the characters as completely different from their movie versions, I can't imagine McGonagall any other way. I believe J.K. had Maggie Smith in mind when writing the character. A lot of the actors were. Alan Rickman was way older than the character of Snape. It doesn't mean they didn't kill their roles though. Even improved upon the book's portrayal. I like that she looks sweet and friendly on the outside as opposed to toad-like. She looks pretty toad-like to me. I can't see her in other movies without judging her as Umbridge. Just can't stand her at first and think she's that evil woman. Really sweet gal, but did way too good of a job as a bad woman. Alan Rickman, Hans Gruber. Always. I fully believe Adam Driver would play a great, more age-appropriate Snape. Marlon Brando, The Godfather. He led that movie, but the music, other actors, and great themes also helped. I don't think anyone will make offers that can't be refused as well as him. I mean there was De Niro. He admits to portraying the character like Brando. Yeah, but De Niro did alright as Vito Corleone too. Val Kilmer as Doc Holliday. In fact, you're so drunk, you're probably seeing double. I have two guns, one for each of you. My favorite character ever in film. You can tell he just had so much fun with it. Say when. I have not yet begun to defile myself. I'm your Huckleberry. You're a Daisy if you do. Jack Black as Poe in Kung Fu Panda. Never has an animated character been matched so well to voice actor, and the dude put loads of work into trying to make every line be delivered in a way that fits Poe as a character. I think the other people working on it said he re-recorded most of his lines multiple times. This is actually favorite one. There is no one out there with the same energy. Jack Black clearly puts 150% into everything he does. Kung Fu Panda School of Rock, all things Tenacious D, high fidelity. Don't forget acting as a teenage girl in Jumanji. Oh wow, how did I forget? That movie was far better than it had any right to be, wholly due to the cast. Jack Black absolutely killed it as Shelley Bethany. He is one of the things that set Kung Fu Panda apart from the other DreamWorks properties. The way he voices Po is so full of heart and passion for the character. He's not the overly sarcastic or wisecracking smartass who drops pop culture references every 0.04 seconds. Imo. Even as a medieval fantasy fan, Kung Fu Panda 1 and 2, HTTYD trilogy, Fight ME. My friend is an animator and said he saw Jack Black come in to audition for the part. He was basically jumping around doing kung fu around the office the entire time. Jack Po's excited wo-ho-hos are just perfect. Love JB. Love KFP. I agree Jack Black as Po is poetry, but I think there's an argument for Robin Williams as Genie as a perfect marriage. Possibly the only character that could encapsulate Williams at his most comedically frenetic and emotional in one character. Jack Black is just awesome these days. Can't wait for Jumanji 2. I swear half the stuff Jack does is because it sounds funny. Him having to play a teenage girl stuck in an out of shape explorer's body was hilarious. But I still think Dwayne playing Danny DeVito is gonna be funnier. Robin Williams the Genie in Aladdin. My favorite story from RW as the Genie is that they originally had the sketches for each part drawn out, but RW kept going off script into hilarious tangents. They just stopped pre-sketching his parts until they already had it recorded. That sounds similar to the start of Ms. Doubtfire, when he was doing the voiceover for the smoking cartoon character. I read that they had over 16 hours of unused audio. Also, they were filming Schindler's List on the studio across the street, and RW would go there at the end of the day to cheer the actors and crew. He also went off script so much they weren't eligible to be considered for a Best Screenplay Oscar. This is also why the movie Beetlejuice is so weird and plotless at times. Burton had a great script written, but decided to lean into the improved skills of the cast, allowing them to write and rewrite dialogue. From there, he started adding fanciful set pieces that barely move the plot along but give the movie its dreamlike feel. Yeah, Will Smith does a nice job, but Robin Williams always had that spark of magic. Will Smith wasn't bad. RW was definitely better, but The Fresh Prince did better than I expected. It was a completely different take on the character, which I thought was good, because Will Smith himself even said he could never do justice to Robin Williams' character as it was. Also as the teacher in Dead Poets Society. Viggo Mortensen as Aragorn. Actually rode horses, actually was trained in sword fighting, actually did his own stunts despite getting injured. The LOTR films had incredible casting. I remember watching the trailers for Fellowship of the Ring and being impressed by the special effects, but then they showed Viggo Mortensen as Aragorn and I was sold. I want to go back in time and see the trilogy for the first time again. If you haven't seen the extended editions, it's like a whole new movie. Absolutely, they are wonderful. They're re-releasing them in 4K next year. Stuart Townsend was cast initially, but the first day everyone was like, we've made a terrible mistake, and reached out to Viggo. We all owe thanks to his son Christopher Mortensen for convincing his dad to take the part. Almost everyone in that trilogy is who they were. Seriously, the best casted series ever. Mickey Rourke as Marv in Sin City and Jack Gleeson as Joffrey in Game of Thrones. Jack Gleeson is a hell of a talent. Never before have I loved to hate a character as much as Joffrey. They say it takes a good actor to make the audience love a good character, but it takes a great actor to convincingly portray a bad evil character. Gleeson was phenomenal at portraying Joffrey. Kyle MacLachlan as Agent Cooper. Damn good coffee. David Bowie, Jareth, the Goblin King. You remind me of the Babe. What Babe? The Babe with the power, Sparkles. What power? The power of voodoo. Voodoo. You do. Do what? Remind me of the Babe. Michael J. Fox, Marty McFly, Jeff Bridges, The Dude Martin Sheen, President Bartlett, Edward James Olmos, Admiral Adama. Michael J. Fox, Marty McFly. I would add Christopher Lloyd as Dr. Emmett Brown to that. One of the best movie duos in history, and each one perfectly cast, not only for their respective roles, but for how they flawlessly complemented each other. I agree. Not only are they great in their respective roles, but the chemistry between is so good. It's hard to make a friendship between a teenager and an old crazy scientist not weird and make it work, but they both did a great job. I just recently watched some old interviews. Lloyd stated many times that Eric Stoltz, the first Marty that did like 6 weeks of shooting, was a good actor, but he felt like something was missing. As soon as Michael hit the set, the whole chemistry between the characters suddenly worked out. Edward James Olmos, Admiral Adama. So say we all. So say we all. Favorite character in BSG. He played Adama so amazingly I can't imagine anybody getting even close. I'm sure you know this already, but for the people who don't, the original Marty McFly was played by Eric Stoltz, but he wasn't working out, so they cast Fox in the role instead. They actually shot parts of the movie with Stoltz, so there is footage that exists with Stoltz playing Marty. Also, I think the Coen brothers had Jeff Bridges in mind when they wrote The Big Lebowski, which could explain why he's such a perfect fit. Keanu Reeves as Neo. They also tried to get Will Smith, and if I remember correctly, Nicolas Cage. I'm going to steal the Declaration of Independence Matrix. James Earl Jones, Mufasa. I was thinking James Earl Jones for the voice of Darth Vader. Says you. I maintain that we never got to hear Darth Vader as he was meant to be, voiced by Carol Channing. All of a sudden I find myself thinking about whose line is it anyways. Carol Channing impersonations by Ryan Stiles. Like it's the only way I imagine how Carol Channing talks since I saw him do those impersonations. That's where my mind went. Darth Vader as voiced by Ryan Stiles impersonating Carol Channing. And also Darth Vader. Hugh Jackman as Wolverine. Pretty sure it's spelled Huge Jackman. I thought it was Hugh Jackman. I thought it was Hugh Jackman. Didn't realize his name checks out. A caring, considerate, Broadway show singing and dancing man with laughing eyes, and he makes being a berserker bastard work. They'll replace him, sadly, but I have a hard time imagining anyone doing him as well. Honestly, I'd rather they just allude to the Wolverine character and use his extended family, Dakin, X-23, Honey Badger, instead. They probably won't, but one can hope. You need a short, stumpy, ugly Canadian, and they picked a 6 feet 3 inches Australian opera singer. But, as Spencer Tracy once said when told he needed to grow a beard for a play he was in, I'll act the beard, and Jackman very much did. His Wolverine comes across very well, like Tom Ellis's Lucifer, as a character who is fun to watch, but would probably be very difficult to know. Again, not a first choice. The role was written for Russell Crowe, who turned it down, and they wanted Dougray Scott, but reshoots on Mission Impossible 2 ran long. He was great, but I'm still excited to see a more comic-accurate version of Wolverine in the MCU. A hairy 5-foot-tall angry Canadian. Danny DeVito if he was Canadian. He was amazing as Wolverine, but I would really like to see a short Canadian in the role, instead of a tall Australian. My only problem with Jackman and the role is that the man is almost a foot taller than Logan is supposed to be, but that's Hollywood for you. Evanna Lynch as Luna Lovegood. You're mistaken. Evanna Lynch as Luna Lovegood. I had to scroll so far to find a woman LMAO. I don't know if I'm more amazed by the fact in itself or because I wouldn't have noticed if you hadn't pointed it out. Here's a couple women that I think are irreplaceable for their roles. Kristen Ritter, Jessica Jones on Netflix, Emma Watson, Hermione in Harry Potter, Uma Thurman, the bride in Kill Bill, Ellen Page, in Juno, as well as Elle in The Last of Us. JK, I'm sorry I had to. I can't think of more right now, but there's probably a couple I'm missing. She's exactly the way I pictured Luna in the books. She really brought her to life. Ryan Reynolds, Deadpool. Ryan Reynolds understood the character. A lot of people think that Deadpool is about a bunch of wacky violence, random jokes, and pop culture references, but the core of the character is immense pain. The jokes are his coping mechanism, for his TTY upbringing, for his PTSD, for his cancer, for losing his fiancée, and for his superpowers that don't keep him from getting injured but just keep him alive in spite of it, often against his will. Seriously, go back and watch the first movie and really pay attention to the jokes. Most of them are things that Wade is actually really sensitive about. There aren't a lot of throwaway lines in that movie. The script is amazingly tight and well written. But the core of the character is immense pain. There's a story in the comics where Wade is so desperate to get himself permanently killed that he sets off a nuke under Bruce Banner's car to force him to transform, and then threatens to kill a school bus full of children unless Hulk agrees to literally smash his body down to the subatomic level, which Hulk does. Wade wakes up about a week later and is not happy about it. I can't think of a way to do this that's more Deadpool Wade Wilson why than this. Why a nuke? If he just wanted to destroy his car then that's way overkill. The more pain Hulk feels, the angrier he gets, and the stronger he gets. Last time Hulk really got pissed after his alien wife and kids got blown up, he was powerful enough to beat the shit out of all the X-Men, all the Avengers, the Fantastic Four, and the Inhumans, and it took Marvel's version of Superman to take him out. I assume that Deadpool just wanted him to somehow get strong enough to defeat his healing factor. Probably something radiation Hulk interaction. Then whose litter box did I just shit in? Fake laugh, hiding real pain. I think that described the movie well, which is why it resonates so damn well. Deadpool had a very short cameo in Al Ewing's Rocket Raccoon mini-comic series, but in that cameo, it was very apparent who Deadpool actually was and what his character was about. Really opened my eyes and made me like the character that much more. Man, this just make me love the character and Ryan more. Seriously, this annoying ass dude was born for the role. What's so annoying about his ass, other than the fact it isn't in my lap right now? Axio his ass. Axio bum, stop it Ron. I'm half convinced Deadpool just came out to our world and replaced the man, finally got to settle down with a nice woman and is happily enjoying life now. You misspelled Pikachu. I don't know, I still think Danny DeVito as Pikachu would have been better. I grew up reading Cable and Deadpool, and I agree, even then, I wasn't necessarily imagining RR as Deadpool, but his voice in my head and mannerisms were so RR. He pretty much is our universe's Wade Wilson, except for some reason he never got cancer and started acting. I find every other role he's in annoying, but he fits this character like a bulkhead. Ron Perlman will always be Hellboy. Jeremy Irons as Scar. I think Chiwetel Ejiofor does a good job in the live-action version. That said, with the exception of Robert Guillaume Rafiki, all of the original cast is still alive. This is probably the one live-action movie where they could have used the original cast. All I wanted from the live-action was James Earl Jones, Jeremy Irons, and a full version of Be Prepared 1/3, Disappointed Face. Jeremy Irons as Humbert, probably because no one in their right mind would remake that movie now. James Gandolfini, Tony Soprano. When Ginny Sack hauls ass, she has to make 2 trips. I think his son is going to play Tony in an upcoming prequel. Robert Downey Jr. Iron Man Tony Stark. On the spot there, I was rooting for him after I saw my first few minutes of Iron Man. He's the reason I'm into superheroes so much. I agree, he completely changed what the typical superhero is. He solidly changed who Tony Stark was, also. RDJ is absolutely perfect as Tony Stark. When the first Iron Man movie came out, I took my dad to go see it. The look on his face when we got to see RDJ be Tony Stark. Dad looked like he just got to meet his hero. It was the most fun I've ever had at the cinema. Largely because I got to see a fun movie and because I got to see such unbridled joy and amusement out of someone who would otherwise be labeled an asshole. Similarly, I remember when I saw Iron Man 1, I loved it and asked my dad to see it with me. He hated RDJ. He saw him as a criminal and an arrogant asshole. I always remember when we walked out of the theater, he was speechless. He couldn't believe how much he liked RDJ as Tony and how great RDJ looked. Considering the last time he had been seen, his drug habits made him look not so great. Most teenagers don't remember what RDJ was like before the role, but our parents all had poor opinions of him. I'm glad he got his shit back together and got to keep being the Tony we love. He saw him as a criminal and an arrogant asshole, which is actually perfectly fitting for Stark. Came here to say that I still remember the trailers for the first Iron Man and thinking shit, he's perfect, he never let me down. Also, Chris Evans as Steve Rogers is right up there. I do partly agree with Chris Evans as Steve Rogers, but I feel Captain America is an easier role to play. There's a lot less personality to portray. I do not by any means think Cap was an easy role or that Chris was a bad CA, but compared with the Tony Stark role, I feel like there probably is some actors out there that could have done it just as well. I read an article once that pointed out RDJ also is someone with a troubled past looking for redemption. So even outside the content of the movie, people associated the role and his personal issues together, making it even more perfect. Whatever else you want to say about Marvel, they are truly superb at casting. Hugh Laurie, House. Fun fact, Hugh Laurie was on location filming a movie while they were casting for House, so he sent in a tape to audition with and he was in character the whole time. The casting director had seen a lot of British actors for the role already and had said he wouldn't look at any more because he didn't think their accents were convincing. He didn't know anything about Laurie, so when he saw the tape he was loudly proclaiming that a Brit could never have given that performance and that was who he wanted. I watched some of it dubbed on TV first. When I picked up the series later, I was surprised how different Hugh Laurie's voice was from his Bulgarian dub actor. Honestly, it threw me off for a while. No idea who voiced him here, but that dude captured perfectly the cynicism of the character. I had a hard time watching the first few seasons with him not speaking in his English accent. Having known him from his earlier work, it wasn't until he does his American accent version of a British accent spot on that really sold it for me. That acting of that sort is on a different level entirely. They can keep casting Gomez Addams, but Raul Julia will always and forever be the greatest. Musical notes, Swing Low, Sweet Chariot. Musical notes, Coming for to Carry Me Home, Addams Family and Addams Family Values were both perfectly cast movies. Raul Julia, Angelica Houston, Christopher Lloyd, Christina Ricci, Joan Cusack, it was all perfect. Your very own brother, you drive him away, go off with you, but then you are feeling the little black monster, Pugsley? I disagree. John Astin and the extremely sexy Carolyn Jones were the best. This one right here, John Astin is forever the only Gomez for me. John Astin made the role awesome because of his complete lack of self-awareness. Julia's version kind of knew what he was, not that it bothered him, but Astin seemed surprised, even briefly hurt, when he didn't quite fit in with the mundanes. Visualize the difference by imagining how each would attend a PTA meeting. Both casts were excellent IMHO, each are a subversion of what was thought as the ideal American family at the time, and yet both proved that simply by being themselves, they were perfectly happy families. It really only worked because of the chemistry he had with Angelica Houston. They were magical together. It's not possible to separate and cite one without the other. His on-screen chemistry with Angelica was great to watch. Still has one of my favorite quotes in a movie. Gomez, helping Morticia out of a torture device. Leather straps, red hot pokers. Morticia, later, my dearest. Para Cullen, Optimus Prime. Also Peter Cullen as Eeyore. Sigourney Weaver as Ripley, so perfect. Mr. T, no one can replace T. Jodie Foster as Clarice Starling, God bless Julianne Moore for trying though. I have to give you this one, for sure. Foster pulled off a character that was simultaneously incredibly powerful and crushingly vulnerable. That kind of duality is really rare in movies. Christopher Lloyd, Dr. Emmett Brown. James Roday and Dulé Hill as Sean Spencer. https://wikipedia.org wiki Sean Spencer. And Gus T.T. Showbiz. https://wikipedia.org wiki Gus. Psych. The extra T is for extra talent. You know that's right. Come on son. I miss this show. They have a second movie coming out around Christmas. It's free to watch if you have Amazon Prime, but I still haven't seen the movie, because I don't have cable. This is one of those shows that once I wrap up the last episode of season 8 I go back to season 1 and start it all over again. I just don't binge it like I did the first time. I spread the episodes out in between other show I'm watching. Excuse me, his name is Felicio del Toro. Do you mean Imhotep, or he cometh in peace? Jack Nicholson and Jack Torrance in The Shining. It looked like the role was made around him. Gave me chills. Depp's Captain Jack Sparrow made the whole first movie and was brilliantly well done. Can't imagine them recasting it anyway, but if they did I don't think anyone would come up with anything as original. Tim Curry as Dr. Frankenfurter. David Suchet, Poirot. Totally agree. If you read the books before watching, Suchet completely matches the image you have in your head. Miss Lemon was perfect. I scrolled down to a few comments above this looking for David Suchet, posted my own comment, and then found yours. I'm not a massive fan of the genre but he is Poirot until the day I die now. Perfect casting. Leslie Nielsen deserved to be mentioned here. Every single role he played was fantastic and I can't think of somebody who could do better than him. A true comedy legend. Good luck. We're all counting on you. Surely you can't be serious. I am serious, and don't call me Shirley. I first saw Nielsen in his comedic roles and as an older man. It took me a long time to recognize him as the captain of the C-57D in Forbidden Planet as well. Jack Nicholson as R.P. McMurphy. Samuel L. Jackson as Nick Fury. The previous, white, iterations of Nick Fury are so weird to my brain now. I grew up reading the Ultimate Universe rather than vanilla Marvel comics, and then the Marvel movies started coming out, and all. It was a shock when 12-year-old me discovered that OG Nick Fury was not only not black, but had hair. Danny DeVito as the Penguin. Of all the villains in that series of Batman films, DeVito's Penguin was the best. I felt he was the only one that was truly unpredictable, while also garnering the most empathy. Nicholson's Joker was second for me. TLJ as Twaface was fun but hokey. The rest I didn't care for. Although Michelle Pfeiffer's Catwoman was the best. Anthony Hopkins Hannibal Lecter. Nah, dude, Mads Mikkelsen killed it, pun intended, as Hannibal. I originally said this until I watched the Hannibal TV show. Mads killed that role. Killed it, cooked it and ate it, not necessarily in that order. Bill Murray, as Bill Murray Zombieland. Double tap. You've got us there. No one plays him quite so well as him. Robert Downey Jr. pretty much is Iron Man in my mind. James McAvoy in Split. The entire cast of the Clue film from the 80s. Andy Samberg as Jake Peralta. Shout out to Miss Rosa Diaz as well. Stephanie Beatriz kills it. When I saw an interview I appreciated her even more after realizing how much of an opposite she is to the character. Voice. Smart. Twa. I'm pretty sure Andy Samberg designed the role for himself. Gene Wilder as Willy Wonka. Johnny Depp can go piss up a rope. Martin Freeman as Bilbo Baggins, The Hobbit. Andy Serkis as Gollum Smeagol, Lord of the Rings The Hobbit. Also Christopher Lee as Saruman, and Viggo Mortensen as pretty much every big role he's played. Linda Hamilton as Sarah Connor. What she did to transform herself from Terminator to Terminator 2 is just awesome. Going further back, Helen Mirren as Morgan Le Fay. She was just stunning in the role. Rutger Hauer, Roy Batty. Captain Navarre, Lady Hawk. David Suchet as Hercule Poirot. I've been a hardcore Christie fan since I was 8, and David Suchet is best and only Hercule. Dame Agatha would have approved. D. Aaron Paul, Jesse Pinkman. Dan Castellaneta as Homer Simpson. Ryan Reynolds Deadpool, Keanu Reeves John Wick. Jimmy Stewart as George Bailey. Margaret Hamilton played the Wicked Witch of the West and the Wizard of Oz. Forrest Gump, Tom Hanks Snape, Alan Rickman Han Solo, Harrison Ford Mr. Bean, Rowan Atkinson, just to name a few. Ewan McGregor, prequels Obi-Wan Kenobi. I freaking love his voice and beard. No one could do better. J.K. Simmons as J. Jonah Jameson. Jim Carrey, The Mask. Winona Ryder as Jo March. Little Women. Angelina Jolie as Lisa, Girl, Interrupted. Tom Hanks, Forrest Gump. Johnny Depp, Jack Sparrow. Ralph Fiennes, Voldemort. Alan Rickman, Severus Snape. Interesting fact, Ralph Fiennes did not want the role of Voldemort at all. He only agreed to play him after being shown the Jeff Rawls performance of Amos Diggory when it is revealed Cedric is dead. Apparently it really impressed him. John Bernthal, Frank Castle, and Vincent D'Onofrio as Wilson Fisk right alongside him. Rare you get two of these from the same piece of media, but they both really did nail it. Hugo Weaving, V. Maggie Smith, Professor McGonagall, and Dame Judi Dench is the only M that exists in my mind. Steve Carell, Michael Scott. Creed Bratton. Al Pacino, Tony Montana. Paul Rubens equals Pee Wee Herman. Bryan Cranston, Walter White. You spelled Heisenberg wrong. Don Knotts as Barney Fife. Kathy Bates, Misery. Dustin Hoffman, Rain Man. Ashley Tisdale as Sharpay in the HSM series. She was born to play that role and did so well. Tom Ellis, Lucifer. Since Lucifer is a fallen angel and said to be beautiful, this actually makes sense. And charming, and honestly probably hurt that dad kicked him out for wanting to bring some light to man a Prometheus. Then gets blamed for all the bad things that technically would be dad's fault. The show is pretty light-hearted overall, but it's my favorite depiction of Lucifer. Michael Clark Duncan, John Coffey. Peter Cushing, Grand Moff Tarkin did it so well. His likeness was posthumously used in Rogue One. Harrison Ford as Indiana Jones and Han Solo. Eva Green as Vanessa Ives in Penny Dreadful. Going back a ways, Vivian Lee Scarlett O'Hara. Agree. Someone else said Clark Gable for Rhett Butler, but I don't think he was irreplaceable in the role. Vivian Leigh, however, put in more of a performance with one eyebrow than I've seen in entire films. Honorable mention for Olivia de Havilland as Melanie, as well. I can't picture any other actor being convincing at playing a character who is so purely good at heart. Natalie Portman, The Professional. Heath Ledger, The Joker. No one can play the Joker like Heath Ledger did, better, but Joaquin Phoenix did an amazing job in his version and Hamill's voice acting is exceptional for the cartoon version. They all easily fall into one of the various origins and versions of him and can all be considered pretty equal in that. Except Jared Leto, he's clearly the worst of the bunch. Every other interpretation performance of the Joker has its merits, I'd say. His is really maddening because it is one of those they almost get it things. There is definitely a place for the crazy gangster thug Joker somewhere, but his was just off the mark enough to make it nonsensical. I feel Leto could have been a great Joker if the director actually knew who the Joker was and didn't just get his inspiration from Hot Topic. This is a hard call. Ledger's performance was iconic and brilliant. It's one of the finest depictions of the targeted yet reckless madness of that particular Joker. But the character is so much bigger and has so many permutations tht no singular person can fully encompass it. The only person in my opinion to come close to nailing every single facet of the character would be Mark Hamill. He's performed the Joker as playful, menacing, sincere, mobster, monster, erratic, calculating, and every point in between, and he nailed them all. So which to pick? Ledger's Joker could never encompass so many facets of the Joker like Hamill's, while Hamill could never do the calculating menace like Ledger. I dunno. Hamill gets pretty menacing in the Arkham Asylum games and Mask of the Phantasm. That's before we get into Batman Beyond, Return of the Joker. Though no one has managed to get a Joker laugh as good as Hamill, it can seamlessly shift the tone of the scene on the strength of the voice alone. RDJ as Iron Man. Jeff Bridges as the Dude in Big Lebowski. Thor did quite okay though. I would have to say Leonard Nimoy as Mr. Spock, of course. He basically gave up the rest of his potential as an actor due to this role, for good or for bad. Typecasting can be the touch of death for any actor, but he was able to ride it out like a professional. Funny thing is that he was also an accomplished photographer and poet. I often wonder where he would have ended up if Star Trek had never done anything. My dad met him once in the San Francisco airport but said he didn't seem genuine because he was laughing it up with his companions who were traveling with him. I told him that he was just a regular guy like any of us and had actual human emotions. This set him off and he beat the living shit out of me with a set of jumper cables for soiling his view of Mr. Nimoy's work. I guess some people just have a hard time separating an actor as a person from the characters that they portray. Daniel Radcliffe, Harry Potter. Jim Carrey, The Grinch. How is Gene Wilder as Willy Wonka not the #1 example?